Okay, I'm starting recording. And having the screen share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So welcome everyone to the February 2021 OWASP board meeting. So quickly call to order for attendance. So there's myself, Sharif, in order of that I can see him. There's Bill, Martin, Jubin, Owen, Grant, and I can't see from the logo, but is Vandana there as well? Vandana.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here.
Thank you.
But my video is on and I still see blank. I don't know why. It's black, but my video icon is enabled.
Yeah, that's what threw me off as well. Apologies there. But
Yeah. Okay, give me 2
I'm not
minutes. I
sure.
think I'm gonna disconnect and I'm gonna join back again. I think that might
Okay.
fix it.
So,
Yeah, give me
something
2
might
minutes. I'll
have
be
your
back.
video, grabbed your video. Just check that you haven't got video open in a different chat.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll
Separate switch off. I had it one time. Oh, so annoying.
okay, sure.
Or
Yeah, I'll
used
just
by a lot of software. I hate that.
sure. Let me just check it.
Okay. All right. So the first call to order is the approval of the previous board minutes. So can I get a second for that?
Yeah, a second.
Thank you. All right. So from the order to vote to approve the previous board meeting minutes, Bill?
Yes.
Jubin?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Owen?
Yep.
Grant?
Yes.
And Vandana, is she back? No. It's yes for myself. I think we can go back and ask Vandana for that. Okay, the second line item is the previous emergency board meeting. We had an emergency board meeting to essentially approve to have the AppSec Australia run as a regional event with Martin, Grant, Owen, Vandana, and Bill all saying yes, so that bill passes. So I'll pass that on to reports from Andrew.
Hi. Yep. Can you go down to the executive director reports? It should be linked. You can just click the link. Okay, that'll do too.
Executive director, that one?
Yeah. Okay, it didn't
It's
work.
actually not. That's
Okay,
fine.
guys.
We'll go the old-fashioned way.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. Yeah, there we go.
It does work, Andrew. So,
Okay. Okay, so what we've been doing over this last month has been trying to finalize the 2021 budget. Tom actually sent that to you yesterday in a finalized form. It's got our best estimates of what this year's budget is. I will enter it into the agenda here after this, but I'm assuming you've all had a look at the budget. There is an item there to discuss it, and we can bring that up and go through it with Tom. He's on the call. I'm getting out the policies for finance reform. I've released 2 of them so far. The next 2 are the expenses and events policy, and last one will be travel. I'm not fussed if travel takes time because we're not doing it for a while. We're also getting the trademark program set up. There is a vote today on WIPO. I have registered some trademarks in Australia. I continue to have difficulties getting lawyers with time zones. My current appointment with the lawyer in Brisbane is to go through Daniel Ting's issue with volunteerism and tax and whatnot. And the right type of entity is now 10 a.m. Friday my time. That has been rescheduled 4 times so far. I don't understand why lawyers are so difficult to talk to because they I would assume they like money. Anyway, we'll move on. As soon as I have an answer, I will make sure that I contact both Daniel Ting and Sharif and Vandana, who are following up with that Daniel, to give you the right answer there. We've already approved the creation of the entity. Once I've got the answers I need, I will go ahead and create the entity. We may need to get some more Australian directors. I want to say this may be Alana's last board meeting. She may actually not be at the next one. She will be going on maternity leave for up to 3 months at any point in the next month or two. So just in case this is her last meeting for a few months, I wish to say thank you so much to Alana for all of her efforts in this last few months since Emily's departure. I don't think we could have done the events that we've done without her so far. I really appreciate the work that she's done to document what we do with events, because obviously we're going to be on our own for a little bit, and I'm sure we're going to miss Alana. Lastly, and it's not listed here, I am moving the staff to the community Slack for communications. There will be some private channels there that for us, but generally what this is to do is to encourage us to have a closer relationship with the community and make ourselves more available. That will be going ahead on probably Thursday. I am waiting to hear back from the last community member, Serge Bilconen, who is the only admin left from the community. He hasn't been involved in our community for some time, and I really appreciate all the work he's put into getting that Slack going. We have 12,000 odd people on it, so it's been highly successful. And so I want to treat him right by making sure he's had the courtesy of being notified about being taken away from being an admin, because it's his baby. That's it for me, so I'll pass you on to Tom.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, every now and then when I'm in the office, there are
Do you
technical.
want me to stop sharing for you to present?
Sure. So I'll take the screen. The first thing I'm going to go over is the financial package, and I'm going to apologize up front that there was a formula error. Actually, it was missing from here. The narrative is correct in the net negative net income, but as you can see, what I've done is I put the unapproved budget at this point in for something to compare to. We had about $45,000 worth of revenue in January. Splitting up the budget was about.
Tom, you're
Tom,
not
are you
sharing.
sharing your screen?
Oh. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see
Yep,
that now.
there it is.
Thank you.
Sorry. So anyways, what I was saying was there wasn't a formula in here, so it didn't total correctly to meet the narrative. And I apologize for that. What I've done is I've tried to change the board summary to match what our budget looks like. So you all should have an easier time when you look at the budget versus looking at this summary. For the month, we had about $45,000 worth of revenue. The unapproved budget at this point is about 56, so we were just under $11,000 under in revenue. The expenses were a lot closer. Chapters were way under, so we underspent to budget by about 4,500, showing a minus 6,000 for net income, which with the first month is not too bad at this point. I also put in for you all to look at on a summary basis our balance sheet, so you can see where we are versus last year. We've gone down in equity. Actually, we went up a little in equity. We went down in liabilities. Our cash stayed fairly flat at 50,000. The receivables, we did a really good job of collecting them. There's really not much more on the asset side. With that, that's January at this point for 2021. So I'll take any questions that anybody might have.
When do the 2020 books close? Is that the end of March or April?
No, hopefully the end of March. So that's a good point, Andrew. So we provided a preliminary close for December. We actually have found a few items that hit in January that actually belong to last year. So we've moved those. The second half of the AV for the October event just came in February. So that has to go towards next year. So by the end of March, and we close March, we will have a final for year end. At that point, we'll get the financials to the CPA. We'll take the automatic extension just because, so that the May 15th date will get moved out. But my hope is by the end of June, we'll have a complete 990 and ready to be filed.
Thank you.
And then we don't have to worry about it in November.
Excellent.
I have a question, Tom.
Sure.
When you say N90, do we have the papers ready, or are we working towards the papers
Yes.
to
So
be ready so that?
yeah, sorry, Vandana. Yes. So we are working towards it. They'll put together a list for us to update last year. We're not going through an audit this year. So once we close the books and have the financials ready, then we'll have the new board of directors and, you know, any changes to any programs that you all are doing, although there wasn't much. So it shouldn't take long for them to put the 990 together. I've also filed the Delaware annual return that's due March 1st. So that's just a list of the board of directors and paying the $25. But if we don't file it, then they revoke our nonprofit status in Delaware, which we don't want. So we're all set and good in Delaware, and you know that's the state level, and the IRS is the 990 for the federal level.
Great, thank you.
No problem, but good question. The other thing is Martin and I are going to start working on closing the ING accounts because we've now got Money Corp, the payment transfer platform, up running, and it seems to be going very well. Haven't heard any issues from any of the transfers that have been made. So there's no need of having those extra bank accounts anymore. I will also tell you that Andrew signed the PPP loan forgiveness form yesterday. So now I have to figure out how to get it through Citizens Portal, the bank's portal. But I have it. So we should be getting that forgiven at some point when the Small Business Association reviews it. You know, other than that, it's just the budget when we come to that point. But again, I'll take any questions on the financials at this point.
Then I'll speak at once. So Tom, I do have one
Sure.
question since you mentioned the PPP loan.
Yeah.
You mentioned with the new sort of COVID debt relief package from the U.S. government, one thing that was retroactive is also there's some tax breaks, or there's some benefits for small businesses.
Yep, it's
as well?
called ERTC, the Employment Tax Retention Credit. So I mentioned that to Grant and Andrew yesterday. I need to contact Insperity and find out how we can, it's done on the payroll returns that Insperity does for our staff. Hopefully, you know, it'll be somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Originally, if you took PPP, you couldn't take the tax credit at the same time. Now you can. So I have to work with Insperity to get that redone, find out if it's going to cost us anything. But if it doesn't, then we should file for Q4 and try and get the $5,000 or $10,000. There'll be a reduction in expenses we pay out in 2021.
Okay.
But I'm on that. I'm also, Sharif, looking at the PPP2, because the two requirements for that are they just put a stop on any groups that have more than 20 employees, which we don't. And if you can show a gross revenue reduction in any quarter 2019 to 2020, which we can, because Q3 of 2019 had the face-to-face event in it. Q3 of 2020, that event, while online, was in Q4. So there's a significant drop in our gross receipts. So I'm looking at possibly filing or recommending that we file for PPP2 if we can. I mean, if it's going to be, if it's going to be forgiven, then why not?
Yeah.
And I'm also keeping an eye on the new $1.9 trillion package that hasn't come out yet. But if it's applicable to us, then I'll work on that filing too. I did sit in on a webinar last week from somebody from the Small Business Association, and I specifically asked the question if timing of an event disqualifies us, and the answer was no. It's just quarter to quarter.
Okay. Good to know. Thank
I
you.
definitely concur with going for additional PPP loans to provide a smooth out of our budget until we can get back on our feet. I really want to make sure that we can do Dublin and San Francisco without any stress.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there anything else, Tom?
No, when we get to the budget, I'll be happy to go through that. But things are moving along. Again, the last thing I'll say is we still have, over $1 million, 1.2 at the end of January. So we seem to be holding steady with that. And when you see the budget, it's very conservative. So, we can talk about it at that point. But
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
you're welcome. I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Okay. All right. Before we proceed, Vandana, while you were changing, testing your video, there was one remaining vote on the previous meeting minutes. So, yeah, are you okay?
I approve. Yeah.
You approve? Okay.
Yes, I'm okay. Yes, thank you.
All right, so we've moved on to, we're now moving on to the old business. So there was one item that we've done as an e-vote, and that was a motion to update the links in the financial package in previous approval meeting minutes, and that was approved unanimously, sorry. So on to the new business. So there's a motion to approve the updated chapter committee policy. Andrew, is that the chapter policy as opposed to the chapter committee policy?
Yeah, sorry, the chapter policy. It is the chapter policy and the feedback's there. And I believe we've got at least one representative from the policy review team, and we've also got some representatives from the chapters committee as well.
Yeah, someone looks vaguely familiar. Hey, Sam. All right, so firstly, let's get one thing out of the way. It currently doesn't have a sponsor or a second from the board. Does anyone want to champion this motion and second it?
I can sponsor this motion.
Second it.
Okay, so that's Vandana and Jubin. Okay. So since we have a second, who would like to open up for discussion for this motion? So from someone from the chapters committee, can you walk us through the recommended changes essentially from the policy?
It's a major rewrite, Sharif.
Oh.
I think it might be easier if we just ask questions. So the first question I have is the concept of regional chapters. Where did you guys land on that?
That's still excluded.
Yes. So the regional chapter discussion, they asked for it to be decided sometime in Q2. There's going to be some meetings. I believe, Sam, you've set up a meeting with some of the Germany chapter leaders. We also need to do that for the New Zealand one, because I think that's a closer model that's more applicable, because the sub-chapters are city chapters. And I think that's a model that I can get behind. So we also need to learn from other chapter leaders, regional chapter leaders, to make sure that the model can work for them too.
Andrew, I want to highlight, can you please invite the Japan chapter and Sendai chapter as well? Because
Yes.
I remember there was a conflict there as well, wherein there was one chapter which was closed. Now the other person wants to reopen it, but I think they have already a Japan chapter, so regional chapters can be an issue.
Yep.
So I think if we involve them, then we can hear their points as well.
Absolutely. And the meeting I tried to set up in December actually had all of the regional chapter leaders that I was aware of, including the ones that we don't have relatively strong contact with, including OWASP China. We do need to reach out to OWASP China separately because they're their own entity essentially, and we need to understand how they can continue to operate under this model.
Sure.
Yeah, ask
Thanks.
why is there the reasoning why not having regional? Because we have other regions like the Netherlands, where I'm chapter leader, Belgium, Luxembourg, or really small cities, countries.
So the idea
they
was,
yeah.
in this particular policy, we wanted to get the policy moved forward to simplify it and make it more structured and remove all of the guidelines and handbook information to the handbook. But fundamentally, regional chapters are different everywhere. And I think getting consensus about what a good regional chapter is going to take some time. So we could create a supplemental policy for regional chapters when we've had time to consult.
So we don't disallow regional chapters.
The existing ones, they just continue to operate as they do today. There's no change to them right now.
I just want to make sure. Thanks.
So to answer, Martin, the answer is yes. Here it just says they're treated as if they're a city, but they are allowed. Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure all the board's voices are heard. Are there any further questions from the rest of the board?
Can I ask a quick question to the policy review team? I just want to understand why we landed on 3 or not 2 or 4 meetings. That's the only contentious piece of feedback that I saw, and I'd probably prefer it to be 4, but I'll happily live with 3 as long as people do 3.
Yeah, I guess I can speak to it. The discussion around the number of meetings per year was trying to balance large active chapters that have many leaders and they can drum up a meeting every month against the needs of small chapters, of which I'm one of them, where I have trouble finding yet just one other chapter leader to help me to fulfill the requirements of being a chapter. And truthfully, the people that are coming to my meetings, none of them are in application security. They're just all interested in it. So they don't feel like they have the expertise to like lead the meeting and don't want to be leaders. And so that just means it falls on me. And speaking for myself, it's tough then to organize these meetings every single month. And so I do them about 4 times a year, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. And so 3 seemed like a good in-between number. It wasn't. It is rather soft. There's not like a hard logical reason. Like it has to be 3 because of this particular reason.
Okay. Look, I'm happy with 3.
We had multiple feedback from community members where they were wanting 0 or 2.
Yeah.
So it was just a compromise.
Okay.
The original draft that Mike had put together, I think, said 4. So we lowered it to make a couple people happy. And we also thought with everybody doing everything online now, it's also easier for meetings to happen. So, lowering it to 0 or 2 wasn't necessarily necessary.
Yeah, it used to be the theory was to have a meeting once a quarter. Is how it used to be set up.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any further questions?
There's more a form question. Do we have a template for policies? Because when I read it, it doesn't have the policy look or feel. I think that would be something overall being well, because you want an overall, how to say that, standard and how policies look like. And I think the policy also should address what is in the policy first, that you don't have to read all the policy to understand the policy. I think that's something that I would recall. Would be nice.
I structured it like this, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, it was essentially about the life cycle. How do you create or restart a chapter? How do you maintain chapter leadership and, do the basics of expenses and stuff? And then lastly, how do you actually revive a chapter? And eventually, how do you actually make a chapter go away? So there's actually documented via the life cycle of the chapter. For awards and grants, I've taken that feedback on board and they are structured just like you suggest. It literally starts with the background and then a TLDR, this is how the policy operates. And I've also tried to keep it to less than 1,000 words per policy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll bring this motion to a vote. So the motion is resolve the revised chapter policy is approved, effective chapter, sorry, Martin.
Did you just end the discussion?
Yeah, I thought this was the last question, unless there's anything else from the board. Going once, going twice, okay. So again, the motion to vote on is resolved. The revised chapter policy is approved, effective February 23rd, 2021. So from order of folks that I can see, so Owen,
Yep.
Martin,
Yes.
Vandana,
Yes.
Cuban,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
and that's yes for myself.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so the next motion is to approve the 2021 budgets. That's sponsored by myself and second by Vandana. So I'm opening the motion for discussion. Oh, don't all go at once.
Are
So
we going to
Andrew,
present
you
the
have
budget first? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I was going to say, let Tom present the budget at least.
Yes, please.
Tom.
Hey guys, nope, I'm here. All right, I'm going to take the screen again. Let's hope this time somebody needs to stop. Who's ever sharing? Sorry.
Oh yeah, that would be me.
Okay. You guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So we had one last run through yesterday, Grant, myself, and Andrew. We've gotten very conservative on this. You can see that just by looking at the conference revenue, which is usually 2 or 3 times that. For LASCON, we're only showing a $10,000 profit in the budget. For Australia, we're only showing 55,000. So it's, again, it's extremely conservative on the revenue side. Same thing with membership and the corporate sponsors. This program revenue is Google Summer of Code. I worked with Harold, who feels that we're going to get it again this year. The donations, again, not much. This is a small plan for some merchandising, and then Andrew's talked about the trademark revenue that we'll possibly be able to get. When you look at the expenses, as you can see, the biggest expense we have is revenue, and it's almost, for every dollar we take in, 50 cents of it is expense. The rest of these include the staff. General and administrative has the professional services in it. It has the bank fees. It's typical for what we usually see. And at the end of the day, we're estimating that we'll have a $49,000 loss, which, based on the activity that we have in this organization, that could go either way. I know, last year, between the forecast for 4 months and the Z forecast for the rest of the year, we had estimated a $376,000 loss. The preliminary financials that we put out in December showed a modest positive of about 17,000. We found about 70,000 that needs to go into last year. So we will show a loss for 2020, but nowhere near what we had budgeted, again, because we estimated to be conservative, which again is what we're trying to do here. I counsel my clients that, using last year as an example, if you had a fiscal year end of December and you got your budget done, say in January at the latest, by the middle of March, it was no good anymore last year. So we're still in uncertain times, but having, elicited estimates from the staff, this includes Kelly's estimates, as well as working with Andrew and Grant, we feel that this is, as we sit here today, the most reasonable representation to allow the organization to function, still, assist our projects and chapters, and hopefully get through the pandemic by the end of the year. So, with that, I'll take any questions.
Tom, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I know for corporate sponsorships, as of right now, we're not selling any of those. I don't know where that number came from, because I know I didn't submit. That, when we had sold those, that included like AppSec Cali, our Global AppSec US, and our Global AppSec EU event. But the AppSec Cali is not happening. The EU event's not happening. Yeah. So I don't know where that line item came from.
So this is the $5,000 and $10,000 membership, corporate membership, rather than the corporate sponsorship. So instead of it being an events-based package, it's just simply join OWASP for $5,000 or $10,000. We worked out roughly, here's the individual members, and then we multiplied through the number of people who were corporate members this year and actually reduced them a little.
Is line 6 then just individual? It says membership / corporate income.
It does. So it's in there, but this is also for when we say corporate membership, this line's been here since the original budget that we put out. So are you telling me that we're not going to be selling any sponsorships to any of the events that we're doing this year?
We're selling sponsorships to events, but not corporate sponsorship packages. So last year we sold corporate sponsorship packages, which included, a booth at our Global AppSec events. They could choose a regional event. Right now, those, the only regional event to possibly happening is LastCon in Australia.
Okay.
So, and there's
that's
no
line 5.
Line 5. Yes.
Yeah, it's in there.
So that's why I didn't know if corporate sponsorship meant corporate membership, but then I saw membership on line 6, and I didn't know. Yeah.
You have corporate membership in here.
Corporate member. Okay.
Along with individuals.
And that's combined in what line item? Is that 6? 350? Yeah.
So the question is, do we think we're not going to sell any as the year goes along, or?
We don't have the events to sell them for.
Well, we will be doing some events in 2022, and it looks like the vaccine's starting to work. So I think there will be more regional events coming up, but I don't know that we can really rely upon them as income, but it might be a way for us to continue to start back with corporate membership. The reality is that we actually did cut what 2020's corporate membership was. We cut it like 50%.
Yes.
So this is a conservative figure. Whether it stays in this column and moves up to the event sponsorship, or whether or not it needs to be reduced further, where do you think we need to lie on that?
I mean, would you feel better, Kelly, if we cut that in half? So that at least we have something in there, and that'll end up driving us to a.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, as of right now, if we did a corporate sponsorship package, the only 2 possible events that they could choose for regionals would be LastCon or AppSec Australia for this year. I don't know if companies are going to purchase corporate sponsorship packages this year for next year's events when we don't even have our calendar. They don't. What are they buying? They don't know what they're buying.
Can I ask the question this way? So these events that we're running, are we not trying to sell like a global where, you buy it all for X?
So with these packages, there's with each of these events, there are packages, but the packages are within those specific events. So the brain break, say, for example, it runs 4 times a year. If a company sponsors all 4 of those particular brain breaks, they get a discount. So it's not like they can pick and choose, say, one brain break, one call to battle, like that. It's all within this specific activity or event.
But what I'm saying though is if we went out and tried to find a global or quote unquote presenting sponsor that would get sponsorship of all 7
Yeah, I
of the
mean,
meetings, all 7.
we can definitely look at doing that. I just wish I had known this earlier, just because we had already went through 2 events already and one happening this week that we had sponsors for. So, I mean, we can always, work on them on on a one-on-one basis if they do want to participate and choose other events, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I didn't
apologize for
know-
any miscommunication. I mean, that 100's been in there since the very first iteration. So I apologize if we,
Yeah. So
Okay.
Kelly, let's take this as a. Oh, sorry, Martin. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a rightful question from in the chat, so I just read it out. So what does it mean for OWASP? So currently the conferences are a big part of the income, but we're working on ways to disconnect from this. So that's an answer already. The question would be how sustainable are we? So we said a loss of 50K. So how much do we have on the banks?
as of January, we had
1.2 million.
1.2 million. So your reserves, if you take out our liabilities, I always put it in the narrative. We have somewhere around 11 months. So if we didn't take in another dime, you'd be able to sustain operations for about 11 months. The industry standard is 6. But to Andrew's point, he's concerned about down payments we're going to have to make for Dublin and San Francisco in 2022. So we've got to at least, try and keep that balance, somewhere north of 750 to 800,000, and showing a $50,000 loss, all things being equal, your balance will theoretically stay the same as it was coming into the year in the bank.
Now, a lot of the sorry, Martin, just very briefly, a lot of the programs we've cut up by a lot from the 2020 budget Z. We've actually been very, very conservative on the income side as well as the expenses side. So yes, it's going to be another 50,000 in the red, but we can try very hard, like the discussion about maybe we can actually add corporate sponsorship that we're currently not selling. We do have events in 2022 that they could actually attach themselves to. Maybe we could just change the terms a little bit. Some income now would be very good, but essentially a lot of this stuff is very conservative and it wouldn't be hard to overachieve a little bit. I'd rather have a conservative figure here and then do better, like we did with Budget Z, than to have a very optimistic budget that we can't meet. I think we need to go with eyes wide open.
Yeah, I most definitely agree to that. It's just as one thing. So we have about 200,000 that we can lose, still safe to continue as we used to next year.
Yes.
There also was a question about asking for, I call it donations. Have you done anything about that yet?
We are planning on at least quarterly fundraising and donation sprees. So essentially, if you think about the NPR model in America, where they have basically a donation-a-thon or a sponsorship-a-thon once a quarter. So you don't get fatigue from being constantly bombarded for money. We also have a call to action at the top of our website asking for donations, but we do need to, on a very regular basis, do donation drives.
Our very sneaky search function in the top has had me click donate far too many times.
Being as conservative as I am and doing this for a while, there is one other thing that's not factored in here, which is the forgiveness of the $112,700 worth of PPP. When that happens, and I've already checked with the partner at the CPA firm we use, while it was for last year, once it's forgiven this year, it will get counted against this year's expenses. So it will theoretically lower that 1.457 of expense by almost $13,000. I'm not putting it in here because it hasn't been forgiven yet, but we have a 95% chance that it should be, because we've met the criteria. So again, while we put this in here this way, if everything breaks exactly, there's something to mitigate that a little bit, which if the whole 100 comes in and we don't get any of this, we're still going to show a positive net income for the year. Because what will happen is you'll be paying less, theoretically, the staff expense will be less in 2021.
Yeah. So Kelly, my question is, aside from the sponsorship line item, do you have another concern with the corporate income or on the event side of things?
So corporate income was 100,000 for corporate. Is that corporate membership, correct?
Corporate membership meant if you can go back to the other.
Corporate is 200. Okay, that's what I had written down. Okay, and then 150. How about on the other tab, Sharif? There's a line item for marketing for 67,000. Outreach and marketing line 17.
That's an expense.
Yes.
Right. So I was under the impression that we had no money for marketing because we obviously need marketing.
So that actually encompasses some of the staff time. So it's not just about marketing. Looking back at the budget detail for that particular area, there is some
marketing there.
There is a little bit. There's the merchandise costs, credit card fees, and then the portion of staff time.
Yeah, so the merchandise costs, we haven't actually started that program yet, and it's an assumption that we're going to be charged some money to get drop shipping working. We don't have to spend that money, but it's not going to go down by much.
So the 51,000 that you have for staff time, is that just the events team staff time? Because I'm wondering.
It's partially whoever's supporting the outreach committee's time. The way that I've done this is that I'm assuming that whoever's sitting on the outreach committee or a committee is assisting that committee, and some of the program spending goes towards that. So essentially, we can start
marketing for our events then, because that's what I'm after. That's what we need. So that's where I was under the impression that maybe some of this money was for that we could use to hire some part-time student or something like that. But no, that's not for any events. We have nothing allocated for marketing for events for this year.
The way that we've done that in the past is that individual events have a marketing budget within themselves as a line item for the budget. So we're assuming that was how it was done. We can certainly apply for the Google AdWords $10,000 a month. That doesn't cost us anything, and see if we get it. I think we're eligible. And that way we can actually, get up to $120,000 of the free Google advertising, and we can use that towards events.
Okay, yeah, we definitely need something to promote our events, our trainings.
Okay, so that raises a concern. So Kelly, are you saying that at this point in time, are you not confident that there is line items per virtual event already budgeted? So in line item, the conference expenses, the events, line 16, that does not include marketing for each of the events that are taking place?
No, there's no marketing in that. The marketing was, I guess it was left up to Alana and I to market the events. I was under the impression it fell under line 17, but
that's not how it's ever been done.
Okay.
So Globals have always had their own marketing budget that's separate to our own budget for marketing. The actual OWASP Foundation, as far as I'm aware, and I was treasurer for 3 years, never had zero. It had $0 for marketing for the 3 years that I was treasurer. So It was only through the budget line items in the events. So maybe do we need to take this off the table for now and come back at this? Like consult with you and then put it back to the board as an e-vote maybe?
We could do that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need some kind of marketing.
I'd feel more comfortable doing that, Andrew.
I'm sorry, Grant.
I was just saying I would feel more comfortable doing that.
Okay.
Take this way, but
Yeah, same.
Thanks,
Actually,
guys.
because like we've just had a conversation of something that shouldn't really be in a board meeting. All that should really be addressed before we get to this stage.
And apologies,
I was a bit shocked.
I thought we had addressed it, but to Andrew's point, with the exception of the marketing that was done last year, which wasn't all that much, the marketing that Mike had done with virtual, everything else since I've been doing this, to his point, the marketing is always event specific. So it goes into the events. So of this 460,000, we can sit and talk about it, offline and see what's in here that we might be able to repurpose.
Yeah. So
Andrew, I thought you talked about for marketing, hiring like student interns for it, and there wasn't going to be funds attached to it.
So we haven't progressed that at this very moment. That was an initiative that Bandana had basically brought up, and we want to move ahead with that idea. But the reality is that we hadn't actually done that.
Okay.
They're essentially unpaid interns. What I'd like to do, Sharif, is can you do a motion to table this, and I'll get a meeting set up with Thomas, Tom, and Grant, and Kelly, and let's get this discussed, and we'll bring it back. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable with it being an EVO, or did you want to bring it to the March board meeting?
Either we have an emergency meeting, or I think this would need a discussion, just given the light of this feedback. But
special meeting.
Yeah, a special meeting for that. But regardless, yes, I'd like to set a motion to table the approval of the 2021 budget. Can I get
a second?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to second item, third item rather. Let me share my screen. So the next item is motion to alter the signing authority of the executive director. That's sponsored by Grant, seconded by Vandana. So I'm opening this for discussion.
If there's no questions, I just want to talk about the background of this. At the moment, without a budget, I don't know what my quarterly spending plan is. I can assume what it might be, but it's also very confusing for a virtual. And in the past 6 months, they have actually asked for dual approvers when it wasn't required. But there were also one example where Owen was really surprised about a thing that I approved under that previous signing authority or the current signing authority. And so I've been notifying people about big bills that are coming in. I'd just like to make it as simple as possible and go back to the 10,000 dual approver, and then make it very simple and make it easy for people with the right oversight. There's very few bills above 10,000, and there's very vanishingly few that would require a full affirmative board vote. But I think, for you to do the proper oversight, I think this is fair, it's reasonable, and it's easy to understand, and I don't have to wait for an approved budget to work out what I can and can't spend.
Okay. Grant, did you have anything to add there?
No, except that I think this does make things simpler. And if anything, it reduces the spend that can happen without dual approver. It just makes it very clear what it is.
Okay.
Just a quick comment or quick question. Does it make sense for this type of, I absolutely agree. This is much simpler and will enable, but does it make sense in years like 2020 where our budget is constrained that there'd be emergency substitutes for this, so that those figures are maybe the 10 to 250 is something that in a year like 2020, when we're running low on funds, is something we want to go to the board. Does that make sense?
There's probably only about 10 to 15 of those that are there. And once you get above $10,000, I do talk to the treasurer and the chair to discuss it. If they feel that this needs board approval because we hadn't budgeted for it, for example, they're always welcome as board members to raise a motion, get an emergency meeting, do an e-vote if they're uncomfortable about approving something. I think this is policy. A policy should be evergreen. I do agree with you that I did reduce the limits here quite considerably from 55, 59,000 to 10. There are still probably one or two of those bills a month. I think if there is significant concern for unbudgeted spending, the chair or the treasurer can ask for it to be taken.
Okay,
does that make sense?
And then it does. So the opposite of my question, in a year that we do have a lot of green on our books, does it make sense to give the ED some more discretionary spending without requiring that to again enable the ED to make actions without getting a second approval? Or again, the same statement can apply, right? Because those are so rare, it doesn't make sense.
So in general, we all are financially responsible, and the approval came in the past, because then otherwise we had like 4 times waiting for approval on budget and signing to release money. And that was very inconvenient. So depending on the burden and the delay being by the chair and the treasurer in the past, that's why we need this according, I call it signature signing authority. I don't know if we should change it a lot, because it should reflect on our current and even close future business, not to be talked too much also in the future.
That makes sense.
So the reality is this makes it simpler for virtual to apply pretty much standard industry practice, and I'd like to keep it with standard industry practice if I can. I don't find it hamstringing at all to ask for a dual approver, and it's been working quite well.
Okay. Are there any further questions before we go to vote?
One thing that might be useful is that the information that's provided to the chair and treasurer every month for approval, just that there's a little bit more clarification on what the actual expense is. Because I know Vandana was going through with a fine-tooth comb with yourself, Tom, but when it was coming to me, all I was seeing was small comments. Even like for the virtual contract and stuff like that, it's really just like virtual. It doesn't give clarification of what the fees are, but the same with expenses from chapter members and so on. So just to get that little bit of more clarification in there might be useful.
Yeah, I can do that. Generally, I get to see it before you guys get to approve it. I can write up a little narrative.
All right.
And on the couple of occasions it's happened so far, and we've had a back and forth exchange, please tell me what this is about. What's the context? Where's it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll raise this to a vote. So the motion resolved, the updated limits in the signing authority policy are approved and shall take effect February 23rd, 2021. So in the order, I see everyone. Owen?
Yep.
Martin?
Yes.
Ruben?
Yes.
Grant?
Definitely.
Bill?
Yes.
Vandana?
Yes.
And that's yes for myself.
Thank you.
So the next motion is to register WIPO trademarks. That is essentially to register our trademarks using a single throw process to 123 countries.
Up to,
yeah. With 12,500 set aside for the budget there. Andrew, do you want to just walk through this? Yeah.
I asked for this to be, under normal circumstances, this would just be an operational matter if we had a budget that was passed. But because the board has decided in the strategy meetings to make trademarks an important item, I've actually had to register some trademarks in Australia, which cost us $1,250. It doesn't make sense. Lisa brought this to me at the Madrid WIPO trademark program. And what it does is that you pay a certain fee per country you want to have. If you do 123 countries for every trademark, we may not be doing any significant business there, and it doesn't make sense. So I've asked for a certain amount of money to get this done, and I'm going to choose countries where we've done business in the past and likely to do business in the future that actually respect this. And it means that our European and US trademarks will be respected in those additional countries. So instead of having to register individually, such as in Australia and whatnot, we can just go ahead and do it through the Madrid process. I've asked for basically up to $15,000. I will try to keep it as small as possible. It seems to cost about $1,250 per trademark, but there may be some legal fees that I'm not aware of other than that. So let's keep it to about 15 and I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Are there any questions for discussion?
No.
Going once, going twice. All right. So motion to resolve in order to advance the priority of OWASP trademark program, the OWASP Foundation is permitted to register 4 key trademarks under the WPO Madrid mechanism with a budget not exceeding $15,000 US. So by the order of who I see, Martin,
Yes.
Jubin,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Vandana,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and yeah, that's yes for myself.
Thank you.
The next item is a motion to formalize e-votes. Essentially, we had a conversation over email on this. It's Bill pointed out that as well that the bylaws are permissive enough that we can have e-votes, but it would be recommended, or this was brought up, to actually have it a little bit more structured in the bylaws in order for us to continue having these e-votes, which have been helpful for us if we ever overspill any votes, so that we don't have to wait for an entire month to get something approved or spin up an emergency meeting for that. So it's been sponsored by Grant and seconded by Vandana. I'm opening this up for discussion.
So just really briefly, this is how I've been operating e-votes since August. It seemed to be working. We just want to make sure that it's documented.
Is it, sorry, I meant to email and I totally forgot before this meeting. Does it make sense to have one of the requirements for e-votes consent to be using your official OWASP email and not any email? Is that appropriate language to add here?
I think the language should be then for all OWASP, even higher for all official OWASP communication. It should be the OWASP email address, right?
So Mark, you mean there's an overarching policy already for that? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, there should be.
Okay. So I guess we can take that offline.
I can certainly add that to the procedure, which is what this bylaw, what this motion asks us to draw up. I can actually put that into the procedure and make sure that it's publicized. It's not, there doesn't need to be a policy or a bylaw change.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any further questions on this? Okay, so I'll bring this to a vote again by order that I see. So the first one is Martin.
Yes.
Jubin.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Vandana.
Yes.
Owen.
Yep.
Bill.
Yes.
And that's a yes for myself. The next item is a motion to permit consent packages for small bylaw changes. It's sponsored by Jubin. I'll happily second this as well and open this for discussion. Just for context, there's concept of consent packages for boards, which allows you to have small, routine, and non-controversial issues essentially packaged for a board to vote. The information is presented ahead of time. It's voted by the board, but it's not reviewed or it's not discussed during the board meeting. It's just brought up and they can vote on it just to move things along. Andrew, do you have anything to add on there for Jubin?
Yeah. So this was originally related to the pull request that Jubin put up for gendered language, which would be brought to the March meeting. But what it would also allow us is to actually put that to an e-vote without going through the policy review team. That's the fundamental here. If there's spelling mistakes or small inconsequential changes like that, it doesn't change the direction of the policy. It doesn't create a new thing that needs to go through the policy review team. It just simply means that the majority, or sorry, 2/3 of the board, because if it's policies or bylaws, it needs to be that level, can be just passed as a consent thing to free up time. So this, for example, could have been a e-vote easily under this mechanism. And I think it would free up time for the board to discuss more important matters.
Yeah, I really like that it has to be a 2/3 vote because slight change in grammar can have big impact in how it's been understood and perceived.
Yes.
Just with a 2/3 approval, and we're happy with that.
But it would have saved us at least 40 minutes on this call tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know, we're here to save time. We are here to spend the time efficiently.
On a side note, thank you, Kelly, for bringing this up. This was actually quite important as well. And then we'll carry the budget on a separate conversation. Going back to this, are there any further questions with regards to the motion? Okay, I'll bring this to a vote. So again, going back to order, Martin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Vandana?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Jubin?
Yes.
And that's a yes from myself. Okay, so we finished the new business. So we're going through for comments, announcements, or any other business and discussion. The first item that we have is the discussion on gendered language, which was brought up by Jubin. So would you like to take it from there, Jubin?
Sure. So the January board meeting, when we went through the officer elections, during our discussion, we had to talk about board person rather than board, just general gendered language. So that triggered me to go through and look for gendered language in our bylaws that are dated at this point. And I did a pull request to make those changes. I've discussed this with every board member. So I won't speak to the results of that. I guess we can vote on this in March, hopefully by an e-vote. But this is largely my attempt in getting the community involved and by making pull requests against our bylaws. So my hope is that board members aren't the ones doing this, that the community in general gets involved by doing these types of pulls, and we can vote by e-vote. But this is just the first of many changes like this.
Yeah, I think it's really important. There might be also other issues like this, like technical terms that are racially charged, like whitelist, blacklist, and that kind of thing, that we might look at. The challenge there, I'd say, is if it's in the bylaws or policies within the foundation, that's fair enough. It's a question of how do we discuss with the project, for example, on how and what can we ask them to do from that perspective. But this one I completely agree on.
There's nothing stopping any OWASP member from making a pull request against a project, suggesting changes in languages.
That's
And
right.
Yeah.
It's up to the project lead to submerge that request or not.
Grant, I think there's a question of etiquette and like, do we work this way? And I hope that these types of changes will lead to showing the community that we can absolutely work by this way. Like, it doesn't have to go through this bureaucratic process of going through the board to do this. You can make your pull request and get what you want in there, and the board will vote on it if there's a bylaw change. And if it's a project-owned policy, then the project will make that decision.
Yeah, agreed. It does raise the whole GitHub branching strategy question. Are we all on main branches, or do we still have master branches, which we need to fix?
Git is actually fixing that, right? The next patch version of Git defaults to main.
I think it's already the case. If you create a new project now, it's main, and
GitHub
there will be
is
the
main.
ability.
Git is still master.
Oh, Git. Right.
Jubin, is there anything else do you want to add on this discussion?
So, Sheriff, this is slightly off topic from the gendered language, but it has to do with pull requests and issues. Is it okay if I bring those up quickly?
Sure.
So there's a bunch of issues in the WWW policy repo that have been opened by other members, community members. So I'd also like us to, if there's time after everything else for this meeting, to discuss what are we going to do to encourage more involvement from the board in those issues that are being open there.
Okay. All right. So Grant, so moving on to the educational community presentation. Grant, are you taking this one?
Yeah, so this is really an announcement to the board, and it kind of ties in with the grants policy that Andrew has in draft mode for us. The Education Committee and two of the projects that are associated with the Education Committee are going to ask for money. And as you've seen, our budget doesn't exactly have a huge amount of money available for projects to ask for money. That's why we're looking at grants. So this is just really an early warning notice to the board. Please, in March, they're going to be presenting where they're at, where they intend to go, and what they are going to need in order to get there. So hopefully they'll have some idea of budget around what they're going to want, and some idea of how they can potentially go after grants to get that budget. Right now, we only have the draft policy on grants. So the board needs to review that, be prepared to make some decisions on how we take on grants. That's really all this is about. And then I'm happy to cede back the rest of the time to Jubin's discussion around pull requests.
Okay, thank you, Grant. Are there any questions on this? I did have one question, which is, are you proposing also recommending that we vote on the grant policy in March prior to the discussion there?
It's going through the policy review team at the moment, and it may be ready by then. I hope so. The dates certainly allow that to happen, but it means that the community needs to get back feedback, and the policy review team needs to combine all that feedback in time for the next board meeting on the 23rd of March.
The short answer, therefore, Sharif, is no, but the committee and the projects are going to present to the board, and they're going to have an ask. I don't think they will expect the board to vote on their ask in the same meeting, but it will follow shortly after that.
Okay. No problem.
So just be primed for that conversation.
Okay, Jubin?
Sorry, speaking on mute. So I just wanted to get input from the board. So if you guys can all just quickly navigate to WWW policy on GitHub, there are 3 issues, some dating back to August last year. Actually, they're all from last year, but the oldest ones are from August. And there's really good discussion happening, especially one for create a policy and an exit policy for projects. And then there's a create a policy to prohibit the ability to commit to master. But I wanted to get the board's input on, the community hasn't really engaged on these types of policies historically. The policy team has, the board certainly has. Can we drive the conversation by contributing to this and asking questions? Not necessarily changing any board process on voting or introducing new bylaws, but engaging with the community on this.
So I can tell you that we took feedback from GitHub before on policies, and then when Mike was redoing everything, he wanted to push it into email, which is why the current process is send us an email. I think his intention was to have folks participate in a way to where you wouldn't get the mob mentality, where one person would, say something and then 19 other people would jump in and say, yeah, you should do that. In a way, I mean, that transparency allows the community to get excited and interact. So, but that's why we haven't encouraged anyone to contribute through GitHub on policies, is because the way it was set up was through email, where comments could be tracked and then considered and weighed and then added or not, and then the policy got updated. But we could change that process if we thought it was valuable.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't have a strong feeling either way, but I feel like, and I don't know, Bill, if you guys have actually reached out to these individuals about these policies, but I feel like these are very valid questions that should get engaged.
So I actually have had a meeting with Steve Springett. He believes that the current process is completely 100% diametrically opposed to open source principles. Unfortunately, we have had experience last year in July and August where there were pylons. The current policy of email helps people who haven't contributed to contribute. There is one last part of our current policy I think we do need to address, which is anonymous feedback. Like, maybe the policy review team knows who it is, but when we come to publish the feedback, it's just marked as anonymous. That's what the Australian Parliament does with the exact same process to get legislation through. The reality is that Steve's points of view, prohibit to commit to master, is actually just best practice, and I'm not averse to that at all. And the project exit policy, well, there needs to be a project policy, and I think that does need to be covered like we've just done with the chapter policy. But in particular, if we do decide to add Git pull requests, I still think it needs to go through the policy review process. I don't have a strong feeling about having more discussion, because we've seen it being discussed on leaders as well. So whatever the board decides here, I'm okay with, but I would suggest that the policy review process has been very valuable to incorporate feedback and get a consistent outcome.
Yeah, I think the question I have there is also reaching out to key stakeholders as well that may have a much more informed and impassioned opinion directly as well. And on both sides of the argument, essentially. So you're not just taking everyone's feedback, but also reaching out to a handful of people, either that that either are specialists in the area or are key stakeholders in specific policies as well.
So I think part of that was meant to be addressed by the makeup of the policy review team, so that we had someone from a flagship project, we had someone from an active chapter, and like that, so that different perspectives were considered.
Yeah, I mean, specific, not for the entire review team, but for specific policies. So if there's one that you particularly know, a stakeholder, so I'm just going to put it very generally, that has a very strong opinion, but is not necessarily as responsive to reach out directly, for example, or have a call just to get more feedback, or actually reaching out to potentially outside of the community or a little bit further just to get feedback on what other people are doing, that kind of thing. But it's just me. Okay.
So there's a couple of things that we're kind of like merging together here, because there's a lot of history around policy review. And I think Juven's question is, there are open issues. Is somebody looking at them? I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, Juven, but I think the first question is, these things are here. Has somebody done something? Are we accepting feedback via issues? If we aren't, why not? If we are, do we close them? Do we add comments to them here? What do we do with them? There is a process by which policies get changed, and if we want to modify that, that's fine, but we should modify it. We can't just change and tell the policy review team, sorry, you have to look at the pull requests. We have to look at the issues that have been raised.
Yeah, I mean, we also have contribution guides, right? We have contribution guides to all of our projects, but not to our policy. So as an outcomer, as an outsider from OWASP who's trying to engage with the community, I don't know how to contribute to policies.
Yeah.
I'll add a contribution.md file, because I think that's actually something that is missing from this repo. And I'll make sure that everyone gets a chance to have a look at that. It's not necessarily a policy, it's just how to engage in the policy review process.
Yeah, I think that would address my, like, if there's, it sounds like there was history that I didn't know of how we engage on policy changes, which is by email. That actually makes perfect sense. So, so yeah, that makes perfect sense. I apologize for taking the time.
No, it's a good discussion to have, Juven. It's also, it doesn't make perfect sense, but it is the best solution that the policy team could come up with, because of the complications of everything.
So to one of Steve Springett's points, I actually did the awards and grants policy as a pull request and a branch, so people can see how it generated and who's contributed to it. I think that's actually a good thing. I do think that having issues associated with draft policy is actually a good thing, so people who are drafting it can get feedback straight away. I have no objections to doing these things. However, Steve's viewpoint that the current process is completely horribly broken, I don't think is supported by the majority of the community. And I just wish to have a process that allows all contributors to be heard.
But for the record, branch protection is a good thing. We should definitely do that, especially as it does publish.
Maybe we can do that in the process of removing all the masters as the main branch.
Yep. So branch protection on main, and then move everything over.
If we're going to do that, can we do it across all the www repos, please?
As opposed to projects, yeah.
I'm going to have to train my staff in how to actually do branches and things, but that's not impossible. At the moment, they just use the HTML editor here. I'll get the training happening, and then we'll make that change.
If branch protection is turned on, Andrew, when you use the HTML editor here, it will offer to fork to your own account for that.
Yeah, as I said, I need to train the staff before we can put that in place.
One other thing, can we please have grants, as in the policy, lowercase consistently?
Yes, otherwise they think it's you.
Discussion led by grants in relation to the clock we received for the grant.
Yeah.
Can't we change your name?
Yeah, that might be easier, Martin, actually.
Okay, that's fair. I'll get that done for you.
Okay. If that's all, the last item is basically a change in time for the March board meeting. So it will start at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as opposed to 1 p.m. to be more considered for folks further east, such as myself and Vandana. So the adjournment motion, so the next general typo there, board meeting.
23rd of March.
Yeah,
I'll get
23rd
that
of March. Thank you. So yeah, can I get a second to the adjournment, please?
I can second it.
Thank you, Vandana.
Oh,
You sure you don't want the second to the German?
That's
yeah.
okay.
One is enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. This is a very productive meeting, and I'll get all of the things that I've got to get done into Asana and get them done for you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Everyone.
Bye.
All right, stop the recording.